Have you ever been paralyzed, observing how she smiles at the words of another, while you remain invisible, condemned to be a silent witness of your own irrelevance? That feeling that you get inside, that knot in your stomach when you realize that you always end up being the friend who goes to let off steam on the idiot with whom he is coming out. Today, all that changes. You are about to discover an ancestral code that challenges everything you thought about knowing about female desire. It is not cheap or deception tricks. It is much deeper and disturbing. If what I am saying already made you question something, give it I like right now, because what I am going to reveal could transform your life forever. Prepare to enter a maze of uncomfortable truths that only 3% of men know and apply. Are you ready to discover why you failed so far? Listen carefully to what I am going to reveal to you now, because you are about to understand why all your previous attempts have been in vain. Seduction does not begin with a simple hello that fades in the air without a trace. It begins with a break, a fracture in the expected, a spark in the silence that awakens something asleep in it. You have been following a script that you were scheduled as a child, to be kind, respectful, complacent, and that same script has condemned you to romantic invisibility. The brutal truth that nobody dares to tell you is that you were scheduled to fail from the beginning. Society, romantic films, even your own mother, everyone taught you the wrong way. They told you that you were gentle, educated, considered, and do not misunderstand. Those are important qualities to be a good human being. But alone, isolated from other, more primitive and powerful elements, do not create that unstoppable attraction that makes a woman cannot get you out of her mind. The first movement is not about being pleasant or harmless. It is about taking control of the emotional rhythm from the first second, of establishing that you are not one more of the flock of predictable men who approach it with the same spent lines that it has heard 1,000 times before. Imagine approaching her, but instead of being predictable like everyone else, you tell her something like, "You have a face of someone who hates superficial conversations, but secretly loves chaos." At that time, something changes in its expression. He pauses, flashes. His brain is activated as an engine that has just received high-octane fuel. Why does this happen? Because you have interrupted your automatic pattern, that mental filter that is programmed to automatically rule out generic men. At that moment, you are no longer one of them. You have managed to feel curiosity, and curiosity is the entrance drug to desire. Most men never understand that the first sentence is the foundation of the entire game that comes later. It is like the opening movement in chess, establishes the tempo of the entire game, defines the emotional battlefield. If you open weak, with something common and predictable, you have already put yourself on the defensive. You will spend the rest of the interaction chasing it, desperately trying to recover the lost terrain. But if you open strongly, with something unexpected, poetic or slightly absurd, the advantage of the frame. Now she is in your world, playing according to your rules. The primary movement is not what you say exactly. It's about how sharply short everyday noise. It is your tone, your timing, the deliberate calm in your way of speaking, that slight smile as if you already knew how all this will end. Men who approach with predictable phrases are discarded by their subconscious in seconds, but a man who walks with a sense of controlled unpredictability becomes a question she wants to answer. Never forget this ancestral truth. Women are attracted to what they do not understand immediately. So I know the enigma. I know the break. I know the man who speaks not to impress with beautiful words, but to cause something inside her that had forgotten that he could feel. When your first movement makes it stop and think, when you interrupt the normal flow of their social interactions, when you create that moment of hesitation and curiosity, the game is already yours. This is where the entire foundation of attraction begins to harden until it becomes unwavering, something untouchable, something extraordinarily weird in the modern world. True trust is not what you say, it is what you don't need to say. She perceives everything before you open your mouth. Read your essence as an open book. Look how you feel. How long do you keep visual contact? If your presence fills the room or mendig to space in it. Authentic trust is silent. Walk without advertising. He speaks slowly, moves with certainty, and above all, he does not fear loss. That is the attitude you need to embody. I don't need you, but I'm not afraid either. This posture turns all the dynamics of head power, and once you learn it, She begins to qualify before you instead, that you have to demonstrate your value before her. Let me make it visual for you to understand it completely. Think of the last time you entered a car showroom. The seller who harassed you, who stuck to you as a shadow, who kept asking you, "Do you like? Do you want to try it? What do you think?" Radiated a despair that you could smell, and instantly you had the advantage because their need decreased its value to your eyes. Now imagine another seller. He greets you calmly, shows you the car with elegance, then retires in silence. He knows what he is offering. He knows that you will feel it if it's right for you. Suddenly you feel the need to demonstrate that you are worthy of the deal. You start asking questions. You begin to justify your interest. It is exactly the same in seduction. When you demonstrate that your life is complete, rich in purpose, full of joy, anchored in strength, with or without it, you become the prize, not the desperate hunter, not the emotional beggar that begs for attention. And women do not chase men who give them pity. They chase men who respect, men who represent something they want to achieve or experiment. How did you radiate this sovereign attitude through your body? Because words lie, but energy never lies. Relaxed shoulders, but strong. Erect posture that speaks of dignity. Unwavering visual contact that does not apologize for existing. Slow and constant breathing. Precise and intentional movements as if you were the owner of the time itself. No trembling hands, no legs that jump nervously, nothing fast and anxious. You speak as if you will trust your silence, because studies show that more than 90% of communication is nonverbal. She not only listens to you, feels you in every fiber of her being. And if your energy says, "Please love me," will move away even if your words say something else completely. But if your presence says, "You are welcome to accompany me, but I do not bend by approval," he leans towards you because detachment is intoxicating. It is addictive. It is what most men never manage to convey. This is the paradox that changes everything. The less you look for validation, the more you multiply your value before your eyes. So remember, do not pursue your attention. Pursue your own inner power. Because when a man becomes magnetic from the inside, everything outside begins to orbit around him as if it were the gravitational center of his own universe. This is the most counterintuitive of all pillars. The seductive art of taking a step back just at the maximum connection point. Not because you don't care, but because you understand one of the most powerful truths about female desire. Nostalgia creates obsession. The void generates desperate yearning. You know that perfect moment when the conversation flows effortlessly, when the smiles arise naturally, when she is completely present with you, absorbed in your presence, hanging from each word that comes out of your mouth. That is not the time to move forward and squeeze until the last drop of that connection. That is the time to leave, to disappear, just when everything feels more alive and promising. Yes, exactly, at the highest point. Just when you feel more electric and full of possibilities. You simply say, "I would love to stay longer, but I have to go. Let's continue this at another time." What happens next is not logical. It is completely chemical and primitive. His brain releases dopamine in a considerable amount, and then you disappear. You just became the episode that ends up in suspense, the song that is cut in the best part, in the book that closes just when the plot gets interesting. Think of the last addictive series you saw. I did not explain everything. I did not solve all the plots. I left you hungry more. That is what you should become. Not the 3-hour film that crawls until everyone loses interest, but the tense episode full of tension that leaves it breathless and telling the days until next season. This means that you do not answer at the time she sends you a message. Do not answer each call as if you were waiting next to the phone. You live your life. You move around your world as a man in a mission, a man who has options, purpose, severity of his own. Because when she notices your absence, her emotional radar is activated in a way that she cannot control. Where is? Who is it with? Why hasn't you responded? And at that time, he is not only thinking about you, he is feeling you. Now you are in your mind and free, making loop, reproducing your voice, rereading your last text as if it were a secret code that needs to decipher. This is the crucial change when she begins to pursue, not by strategy, but by tension, emotion without resolution, desire for resolution. That is what most men never understand. They stay too long, they respond too fast, eliminate all the tension, and in doing so, they kill desire in their crib. But you will learn to get away with elegance, to leave it with a proven, not with full food, to create silences that resonate stronger than words, because that is the most beautiful and cruel paradox. The less you have you, the more you will need. This strategic negligence is not blind arrogance. It is not calculated manipulation. It is pure psychology applied with mastery. And the man who dominates her does not pursue as a desperate predator, attracts letting out, pulling to go, conquer retiring at the perfect moment. The calculated absence is like an emotional magnet that increases its strength with distance. Every hour that passes without your presence increases the intensity of your yearning. It is a vacuum that your mind tries to constantly fill, recreating you, imagining you, wishing you. And when you finally return, the relief of your presence becomes a drug by which your brain is willing to do anything to get more. This is the truth that inveterate romantics do not want to accept. Human desire does not bloom in constant availability, but in controlled intermittency, in the perfect rhythm between presence and absence. Take the initiative and climb the interaction when necessary, without a doubt that they paralyze you. This is the moment of truth where most men fail miserably, where all the previous pillars fall apart if you do not have the value of acting. You created attraction, you built emotional tension, you played the detachment game. Now you need to act with decision. And this is where fear appears in all its ugliness. Fear of rejection, the fear of ruining everything you have built, the fear of being seen as invasive or inappropriate. But let me tell you a secret that will transform your perspective forever. Women want you to take the initiative. They fantasize with a man who knows what he wants and is not afraid to go for it without apologizing for his masculinity. Almost no one realizes this, but the hesitation kills more opportunities than rejection itself. When you feel that the moment is correct, it acts without asking permission, without asking if you can. You read your signs and advance with the trust of someone who understands the silent language of desire. It could be to take your hand as they walk. It could be to bring it closer during a conversation. It could be that kiss at the perfect moment when the silence speaks stronger than 1,000 words. The audacity calculated is what separates men from children who play to be men. It is what makes your friends mention the next day. It is what creates shocking memories that you cannot forget even if you want. Now I know what you should be thinking, and we will clarify it once and for all. This is not manipulation in the toxic sense of the word. It is not to be a heartless patan. Manipulation is when you lie, cheat, or do something against their will. What I am teaching you is the opposite. It is about being authentic in your masculinity, of understanding what really creates attraction and acting accordingly with that understanding. Think with me. When a woman puts on makeup, he chooses a beautiful outfit, uses a special perfume. Is he being manipulative? Of course not. It is presenting itself in the best possible way. You are using tools to become more attractive. That is exactly what you are doing, using psychological tools to arouse genuine attraction. It is not about deceiving anyone or creating a false personality. It is about being the best version of yourself, the most authentic and powerful. And let me tell you something that few men know. Women want to be seduced. They dream of that, read books about that, see movies about that. But they want to be seduced by a real man, not by an insecure guy who apologizes because he exists, not by a man who is afraid of his own shadow. They want to feel that chill in the stomach, that tension in the air, that game of looks that says more than 1,000 empty conversations. And when you master the secret code that I am revealing you, you become that man. You become the guy who cannot get out of the head, the mystery that keeps them awake thinking. Remember that metaphor of chess that I mentioned at the beginning. Each interaction with a woman is a game, and while most men play defensively with fear of losing the queen, you will start 3 movements ahead. You will know when to advance, when to go back, when to sacrifice a piece to win the full game. And most importantly, you will play to win, not to avoid losing. There is an abysmal difference between these two mentalities. Playing not to lose is what keeps you in the friends area. It is what makes you afraid of taking risks. It is what leaves you paralyzed in inaction. Playing to win is to take calculated risks. It is understanding that some defeats are part of the learning process. It is knowing that each does not, closer to a definitive yes. This has nothing to do with uncontrolled lust. It is not about handling or forcing situations. This is ancestral ritual, primitive language that transcends words. The touch is the oldest language of humanity, older than words, deeper than logic, avoids the mind and speaks directly to the subconscious where real decisions are made. But here is the secret that changes everything. She does not feel attracted to the touch in itself. He is attracted to the way he happens, to his perfect timing, at his pace, to his clear intention. The right touch at the right time can tie a memory to your body in a way that will last forever. But the wrong touch, the hurried, the forced, kills everything instantly. How do you start then? Not with blind audacity, but with calculated innocence. A light touch on his shoulder as you laugh at something he said. A hand guiding her gently through a door. A shock of slow and playful palms that stays half more than normal. Moments that feel natural, but that leave an indelible mark. Scales not through pressure, but through presence. You touch and then retire. And that withdrawal is everything. Create absence, and absence creates craving. This is what most men never understand. The touch is not about contact. It is what happens at the time later. Because when you touch and stop, your body feels silence and begins to surprise yourself before you have gone. This is the intermittent touch, the psychological equivalent of a beat. On, off, close, far, safe, dangerous. Build tension that cannot name. It floods its system with oxytocin and dopamine, the same chemicals that are released during pleasure and connection. But you are not connecting. You are recording in your nervous system as a brand that you can never delete. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more natural it seems, the more powerful it becomes. You should not telegraph intention. You should not hesitate. You touch like a man who has done it 1,000 times, not because you are desperate, but because you are focused on yourself. Your hand does not ask permission. Read your reaction. If you lean towards you, you know it. If you retire, you adapt. Because the male touch is not invasive, it is observer. Listen with the skin. And when used correctly, it makes it feel terribly weird in the modern world. A man who is in self-control and tuned with her at the same time. That is magnetic. That is what keeps her awake at night. Because long after the words are forgotten, she will remember how you made her feel. Not in your mind, in your body. Think of physical sensations as emotional anchors. Every time you touch it with conscious intention, you are creating a bridge between your presence and its body sensations. It is as if you will install small magnets under your skin that respond only to your energy field. And over time, these magnets become stronger, more hungry for your contact. This is the true power of the magnetic touch. It does not need to be extravagant or theatrical. In fact, the more subtle, the deeper he sinks in his unconscious. A hand in the lower part of his back while the guides through a crowd. Your fingers slightly brushing your own when something happens. The slightest contact of your knee against yours while sitting in front of each other. They are fleeting moments, almost imperceptible to the outside world, but for it they are emotional earthquakes. They are silent statements of your male presence, of your inherent confidence, of your ability to navigate the physical world with intention and purpose. And remember, each touch has a purpose. Do not touch to play, you touch to communicate something specific. You touch to emphasize a point, to calm attention, to create a connection, to establish a limit, to guide an address. Each contact is a phrase in a primary language that she understands at the cellular level. Cold reading is not magic, it is precision. The silent art of reading what she wants before she even knows. Because each woman leaves subtle signs, not in her words, but in her patterns. The way you dress, the speed of your voice, the rhythm in your walk, which you publish online, where it goes, what it avoids. You are no longer alone. A man, you are an emotional detective reading between the lines, tracking the energy behind the words, feeling the signals that he does not say aloud. A woman who wears striking and brilliant jewelry is screaming for attention. The reflector wants and the confirmation that he still has it. A woman in subtle and elegant tones is deeper, more private. I long to be understood, not only superficially seen. Look at your way of speaking. If you speak fast, gesture widely. It is spontaneous, reactive, guided by pure feeling. If he speaks slowly, carefully, it is calculated, saved, strategic in each movement. And when you adjust your energy to coincide with its hidden nature, when you reflect what you really need without asking you, You become irresistible because you are not offering what you are consciously demanding. You are offering what is secretly dying to receive. That is the real power. The understanding that each human being is hungry for something that cannot even articulate. But here is the trap in which most men fall. They try to do everything instantly. They are audibord techniques, force results, mimic, act, represent a script that is not yours. But this is not acting. This is incarnation of your true male nature. So decelerate starts with just a pillar. Apply it for a week until it becomes real, until it is part of you. Then another and another, until the system is not something you memorize, but something you are. Because this method is not about becoming someone else. It is about freeing the true you, the alpha that society buried under years of shame, guilt, and conditioning, which made you believe that your masculinity was something to apologize. Cold reading requires acute observation and imperturbable patience. It is the art of noticing the micro-expressions that cross your face when you mention certain themes. It is to detect how your breathing changes subtly when you touch certain emotional strings. It is feeling the tension or relaxation in your body when you enter certain conversational territories. The teachers of this art can guess with amazing precision if it has had a difficult day, if you are looking for adventure or security, if you yearn for a challenge or understanding, all based on signals that most men do not even consciously record. And here is the beauty of the matter. When you show a woman who can see her, really see her beyond her social mask, create a connection that is almost impossible to break. Because in a world where everyone is distracted, where interactions are superficial and mechanical, being truly seen is the rarest and most beautiful way of intimacy. And when you offer that, when you show that you can read the underground currents of your being, you become more than an attractive man. You become someone who understands it in a way that nobody else does. This is the true final game of Machiavellian seduction. Not manipulating, but understanding so deeply that your actions seem almost supernatural in their precision. It is as if you could anticipate their needs before she knows them, as if you could navigate the turbulent waters of her emotions with a compass that no one else possesses. And everything starts with a simple decision. Pay attention. Not what he says, but how he says it. Not what he shows, but to what he hides. Not to their social mask, but to cracks in that mask that reveal the underlying truth of who is really and what desperately seeks in this world. Time drains while you stay there, ruminating, overanalyzing each possibility. Other men are already using this Machiavellian method and obtaining results while you keep seeing. You keep doubting, keep asking if it really works. Within your mind, there is a maze of excuses that keeps you trapped in emotional mediocrity, in that limbo where you observe how others live the life you want in secret. Ask yourself, do you want to be in the same place in 5 years? With the same silent frustrations? Seeing the woman you want in the arms of a man who simply knew how to move? The bisturi of truth has already cut your illusions. Now the wound bleeds raw knowledge. Who does not act now will pay the eternal price of romantic invisibility. You belong to a new lineage of men who do not accept emotional crumbs, who do not beg care, who choose instead of being chosen. If this message resonated in the depths of your being, he comments, I seduce without pursuing. Next time I will reveal the final code that makes her look desperately, even after months without contact. Listen to what whispers within you, that authentic man who has always existed, hoping to be released.